Okay, so we've all heard the story, right? June 28th, 1914. A Serbian nationalist assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, and boom, a month later, the entire world is at war. It's the classic spark that lit the flame. But was it really that simple?
I mean, did one guy's actions, just 2 bullets from Gavrilo Princip's gun, really cause the whole thing? Did that really send millions of soldiers marching off to their doom? This is, the central question historians have been wrestling with for over a century.
Or was the assassination just an excuse, a pretext for a catastrophe that was, well, already locked in? Was the world basically a ticking time bomb just waiting for any excuse to go off, no matter what happened on that street corner in Sarajevo? All right, let's dive into the 2 sides of this epic debate.
Okay, so first up, let's look at the intentionalists. This is the argument that the war wasn't an accident at all. It was a direct result of deliberate human choices, made by people who actually wanted a conflict.
So where do we start? Well, with the assassins themselves. These guys were far from horrified by what they'd done. In fact, Gavrilo Princip and his co-conspirators, they were totally unapologetic. See, they didn't see themselves as just assassins. They were revolutionaries. They believed they were lighting the fuse for a war of independence for the Southern Slavs. And you know what? They welcomed it.
And check out this exchange from the trial of one of the conspirators, Vaso Tribulovic. It's really revealing. The judge basically says, "You are to blame for all this." And Tribulovic just fires right back, saying it's not him, it's people like the Archduke. He's blaming the ruling class, the very people they were targeting. This wasn't some mistake, it was a completely intentional act of political violence.
But of course, the choices didn't just stop with a small group of radicals. Not at all. The real escalation, the thing that tipped the scales, happened in the halls of power all across Europe. This is where leaders made a whole series of calculated decisions that pushed the entire continent right over the brink.
And this is a huge one. Germany's infamous blank check. So just days after the assassination, Germany gives its ally, Austro-Hungary, a promise of total, unconditional support. Now, this wasn't some defensive pact, right? This was a green light, a bright green light for aggression. It was basically Germany telling Vienna, hey, do whatever you want to Serbia, we've got your back no matter what.
And just look at how fast things moved from there. This wasn't a slow, creeping slide into war. It was a rapid-fire series of choices. Germany's blank check on July 5th. That completely unleashed Austria-Hungary. So then on the 23rd, they sent an ultimatum to Serbia that was, it was designed to be rejected. And when Serbia, predictably, couldn't agree to everything, boom, war is declared just 5 days later. And that just triggered this massive cascade. Every single one of these dates is a point of no return, a conscious step taken by leaders who were choosing conflict.
But hold on, that's only half the story. Now let's flip this whole thing on its head and look at a completely different picture. This is the structuralist argument, the idea that individuals and their choices, they mattered way less than the huge impersonal forces that have been building up for decades. In this view, Europe was literally an accident waiting to happen.
So by 1914, Europe was split right down the middle into 2 rigid, heavily armed camps. You had the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. This wasn't some flexible balance of power, no. It was more like a continental tripwire. Decades of arms races and colonial rivalries had locked these nations into this state of permanent simmering tension. An attack on one was an attack on all, and what that means is that a small crisis in a place like the Balkans could instantly drag the entire continent into a massive war.
And some scholars take this structural argument even further. They're using ideas from network science, and what they're saying is that the problem wasn't just the alliances, but the whole international system itself. It had become dangerously overconnected, and because of that, it was incredibly brittle.
Okay, think of it like an overloaded electrical grid. As all these nations became more and more tangled up, economically and politically, the pressure on the whole system just grew and grew. But, and here's the key part, there was no central authority to act like a circuit breaker. So any sudden shock, like, say, an assassination in Sarajevo, could cause the entire network to just short-circuit and plunge everything into darkness. From this point of view, the war wasn't really a choice, it was just a catastrophic system failure.
So, okay, we've got 2 really powerful but totally opposing explanations. Was it deliberate choices, or was it an inevitable collapse? But what if the truth is somewhere in the middle? A lot of modern historians are now arguing that the war was neither a simple decision nor a complete certainty. Take historian William Mulligan. He makes this really compelling case that the First World War was, believe it or not, an improbable event. Now, this perspective completely challenges that idea that Europe was just marching inevitably towards disaster. In fact, he argues that the system had actually proven to be surprisingly stable.
And this number really drives that point home. 43. For 43 years, the major powers of Europe had managed to avoid going to war with each other. I mean, they navigated huge crises, like Morocco in 1905 and 1911, the Balkan Wars, and every single time they found a way to pull back from the brink. The system, for all its flaws, kind of seemed to work. So what on earth made 1914 so different?
So how do we square these two ideas? Well, the synthesis that historians like Mulligan propose is that the July crisis was a unique, perfect storm. It was this one specific moment in time where a series of really bad decisions were made, but they were made within an already fragile and flawed system. So the system didn't make war inevitable, but it did make it incredibly vulnerable to just the right kind of human error and aggression.
Okay, so why? Why do we spend so much time debating the cause of a war that happened over a century ago? Well, because figuring out how a catastrophe of that scale could even happen is absolutely crucial for understanding our own world today.
Really, the key takeaway here is that massive, complicated events like World War I are almost never the result of just one thing. They're a perfect storm, this explosive combination of individual choices, deep structural pressures, and just sheer unpredictable chance. And this way of thinking, it isn't just for historians. It's a powerful tool we can all use to analyze any complex crisis. So when we look at the world today, this century-old debate leaves us with a really critical question. When we see conflicts and crises unfolding right now, how do we weigh the blame? Is it the fault of individual leaders making bad choices? Is it the product of a broken, unstable global system? Or is it just bad luck? Thinking about that is why this history still matters so much.